Oh, hello, this is the Burt Locker. I am Burt Green. This one is the Casuals Guide for UFC 312. Now, what I like to do is just run through the entire card, quick hits fashion, so you get a brief rundown of every single fighter, every single fight, a little bit of information on each of them. So I watch a lot of this, and I retain a lot of the information, and then some of it, I do use the internet to jog the old memory because as much as there are so many of them, I remember him fighting not that long ago, and then you just have to kind of either way. I'm going to give you a little bit of information every single fight, and just so you get the most out of the event that comes our way. It's like 5 a.m. UK time. The main event is set for, because obviously this is coming from Perth, Australia, isn't it? So it's either set your alarms early or be prepared for a late night if you are in the UK. But so here we go with the Casuals Guide for UFC 312. Let's get cracking. We're going to start off with Killian Salkild against Anshul Jubilee. This is 155-pound division, 7-1, taking on 7-1. Now, Salkild, he looks right out of the outback. He's an Australian through and through. He tends to grapple, according to the stats. That's really all I know about. I'm not familiar with him massively. Jubilee, the King of Lions, he's a decent all-rounder. I'm only aware of him because he is an Indian mixed martial artist, and I know the UFC are trying to go after that market, so I've seen little bits about him. I saw him against, he didn't look great against Breenan last time out. I'm going to take the hometown advantage here. I'm going to take Salkild by submission in that one. Then Jonathan McAuliffe. Jonathan McAuliffe? Some of these names on this one, honestly, they're more difficult than some of the Russian ones. I don't understand. I just don't really understand how to say a lot of them. Kevin Jousset from France, which is a much easier name to say. Now, McAuliffe, he's got great hair. McAuliffe, I think it's McAuliffe. Anyway, he's got brilliant hair, brilliant all-rounder. He got a really great triangle on his Dana White Contender Series fight. That was where I remembered him from, and that's how he got a spot here in the UFC. Now, Jousset, he sounds like a French dessert. He is from France. He looks like a French football hooligan, but he actually trains at City Kickboxing in Australia. So he lives and trains in Australia, so far as I know. So this isn't a hometown advantage thing for McAuliffe. So I'm going to take Jousset by decision in this one, just because he's pretty solid. Now, Rongzhu from China taking on Cody Steele, 7-0 and defeated out of the US&A. Rongzhu better than his cousin Raitzu. I'm just kidding. He's far worse. He's got good hands, though. He's 15 knockouts on 25 wins, which is pretty good. His competition has been questionable at best, though. Now, Steele, he's undefeated. He has never fought in the UFC. He got a big TKO finish on Dana White's Contender Series, which is what got him his spot here in the UFC. I'm going to take Steele because he's undefeated. I'm taking Steele here by knockout, but not putting any faith in that bet at all. That's the early prelims done. Now we move on to the prelims. Don't forget, if you like what you see, hit subscribe, hit like, all that good stuff. I do one of these every week when my hectic schedule allows. Kicking off the prelims, you've got one of the fights that has been talked about quite a lot because it features Ilia Topuria's brother, Alexandre Topuria. It's Colby Thickness against Alexandre Topuria at 135 pounds. Now, if Colby Thickness comes out to anything other than get down with the sickness, I think he's missed a trick because, you could easily change the lyrics of that song to get down with the thickness. So I'm assuming you say it that way. It's spelt thick Nessie. So I mean, Nessie is a sea monster. I assume there's a certain level of thickness there. I'm getting distracted. Look, Thickness, he's a solid all-rounder. He's undefeated on the regional scene. And he seems to win wherever the fight goes, frankly. Now, Alexander Topuria, all I know is he's 5-1 and he's Ilia's brother. Again, people are going to say Thickness is going to... people are betting on Topuria because of his brother. Now, look, Ilia is unbelievably good, but I've not seen anything of his brother. Now, people will say, yeah, okay, Thickness is undefeated, but who's he fought? But who's Alexander Topuria fought? Name one of his opponents. I've looked I couldn't name one of his opponents on the regional scene, and he lost to one of them, got sparked out. So, yeah, I'm taking thickness here because I think that the odds makers are betting on the hype of Ilia Topuria and forgetting that Alexandra Topuria is a different person. Look at Fedor and Alexander Emelianenko. Like, one's in prison for various misdeeds. The other one's one of the greatest mixed martial artists of all time. Do you know? It's that just because they're brothers doesn't mean that he's automatically going to come in here and now. Maybe he will, but I'm going with the odds. I'm taking the odds. I'm taking thickness. I am down with the thickness. Anyway, Wang Kong. God, against Bruno Brazil. Wang Kong, come on. I'm not touching that. No wonder they call her the Joker. That is her nickname, by the way. Maybe they call it the Joker because everyone laughs in the because every juvenile idiot like me is going to giggle when they hear the name Wang Kong. Anyway, she is pretty good, solid all rounder, unless you take her back. She doesn't seem to do great from there. Bruna Brazil from Brazil, good all rounder. She has good submissions. I'm taking Bruna Brazil in this one just because of the odds, and she has got decent submissions. The odds makers say that's very unlikely, so I feel like I'm probably missing a trick there, honestly. Then you've got Tom Nolan 8-1 against Vyacheslav Borshev, Slava Claus 8-4-1. God, he's got a real smattering of numbers there on his record. Anyway, 155 pounds. Nolan, he's a solid striker. He mixes in the knees quite well, which is what he did quite well there in his last fight. The last fight that I saw, I don't think it might be his last fight. Anyway, not to be confused with the actor of the same name. That is not who's fighting this week. Slava Claus, he's a very good striker. He's from Team Alpha Male, trained by Uriah Faber. He's got good guillotines as well. He has seemed to be overwhelmed in a couple of fights, but when the fight stays standing and he keeps it at his pace and his range, his body shots are outstanding and his boxing really is pretty top tier. I think that this fight may stay standing, so I'm taking Slava Claus to get the job done by knockout in this one. Jack Jenkins, 13-3 against Gabriel Santos, 11-2, 145 pounds. Now, Jenkins is a good all-rounder. He got a retirement gimme against Herbert Burns, but who hasn't made Herbert Burns, just quit the fight halfway through? I'm sure it's happened about 3 or 4 times now. Anyway, Santos, he's solid in all areas, really, and he's only won his 3 for the UFC, so the step up in competition hasn't been the best for him. I'm going to take Jenkins here by decision. Now we move on to the main card. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy this content. I also do silly, terrible bets that will be coming. I'll be recording straight after this, and you can find on the channel. So, Jake Matthews, 20-7, takes on Francisco Prado, 12-2 in the welterweight division at the start of the main card. Now, Matthews is a game fighter. He is just tough as old boots, and he hits very, very hard. He's very, very solid. I quite like him. He's good in kind of all areas. I would say he's solid if unspectacular, but not in a bad way. Simple but effective, I'd call him. Prado is the Argentine Drew Dober. In all seriousness, look at them both, right? Did Drew Dober Sr. go missing in Argentina? Was he unaccounted for in Argentina for several days around 22 years ago? Oh, I don't know. Anyways, Prado's 12 wins, all 12 are finishes. The dude is an absolute savage. He'll either get the finish or he'll lose a decision. It's basically his whole fight career at the moment. Matthews goes win-loss on his record. His last time was a win. So by that metric, I'm going to take Prado to get the finish. Jimmy Crute then takes on Rodolfo Vieira from Brazil in the 205-pound division, 12-4-1, takes on 12-2. Now, Crute, he has a Resident Evil tattoo on his chest, which I respect a lot. I'm a fan of that, and I'm a fan of this fighter. Very similar to Matthews, he's kind of a good all-rounder. He's simple but effective. Nothing too spectacular, but what he executes is really, really tight and effective, and I like that in a fighter. Do the simple stuff well, rather than the complicated stuff badly. And that is Jimmy Crute in a nutshell for me. And I mean that as a compliment, by the way. I know it didn't sound very complimentary, but it really is. Bellato, he looks like he is in a Brazilian gang. He's a big lump. He knocked out Ilia Topuria in his last fight, which for me was quite impressive. I saw that going the other way. So for me, I'm taking Bellato by knockout. but I'll probably be rooting for Jimmy Crute secretly because I just really, really like him as a fighter. Justin Taffa, 7-4 from New Zealand, taking on Thaleson Teixeira, 7-0, undefeated, 6'7" Brazilian monster. So Taffa, he's old school. He's a slugger. If he wasn't doing this, he'd be working a door in New Zealand somewhere. He just likes to fight. He's a scrapper. He gets in there. He's hard to put down, and he hits insanely hard. Don't get into his boxing range because if he hits you, good God. Teixeira, undefeated, all finishes, mostly knockouts. He's got one submission on his record. The dude is a beast, 6'7", absolute monster. This is an interesting fight because this is actually a hard debut, I think, for Teixeira, because Taffa is someone that people are going to be expecting him to beat, but Taffa is not walking into that octagon to get beaten by any man. I'm telling you this. Like, Taffa is old school. He's so tough. He's hard as nails. And if this turns into a stand-up slugfest, I'm taking Taffa all day, which is why I'm taking the Taffa knockout, because we've never seen Teixeira in the UFC. The jury is out. Sometimes, in fact, it happens fairly often that these kind of hype jobs that jump into the UFC, especially at heavyweight, get turned away by guys just like Justin Taffa, who have been in the UFC for a while, and they've really, sink or swim, they've swam for the most part. So I'm taking Taffa knockout there. Zhang Wei Li then takes on Tatiana Suarez. This is the co-main event of the evening. We've got Wei Li. We all know her. She's insanely strong, elite kickboxing, great champion, very polished. She's good in every single area. I say she's better on the feet. Her kickboxing's outstanding, and her strength on the ground is what gets her out of a lot of situations that some of the better grapplers can kind of get her into. Now, Suarez, she's been around for a while. She took a break and has since returned to the UFC over the last 2 years and has looked unbeatable, frankly. She got 2 guillotine submissions in a row. She's very good in all areas, but the grappling is where she really shines. Now, I like Suarez here, and to my surprise, so do the odds makers. I thought that Wei Li would be a favourite in this one, but she isn't. Now, she's looked really great. I think that Wei Li will have a better fight if it stays on the feet. However, Suarez has this knack of being able to just dog it out until she can get the fight to the ground. And I think that's where she'll find a submission. I'm taking a submission for Suarez in that one. Very, very interesting fight that. It's very rare that the champion comes in as an underdog. Dricus du Plessis will then take on Sean Strickland in the main event to defend his 185-pound title. Now, du Plessis, the S is silent, is fantastic because he's got his own. He really has his own unique style. He doesn't fight like anybody else. He fights like Dricus du Plessis. Now, people look at the way he kickboxes, and it's so unorthodox. A lot of it shouldn't work, but he makes it work. He finds a way of making it work. His strikes, they come from all different angles. He hits with a lot of power. And because he's coming from weird angles that shouldn't work, a lot of the time he'll clip you. And he's insanely strong as well. You saw the way he ragdolled Robert Whittaker. The guy has made a career out of coming in as an underdog because people just say, oh, he gets really tired. He actually doesn't. He looks exhausted, but he keeps on going, doesn't he? Keeps on going and usually gets the win. So Strickland is a very fun character in himself. He's got we know his game, right? He's a high-level striker. He spars all the time. He's got sparring timing, and it's a game of inches with him. He's very close, and it's very hard to hit Sean Strickland cleanly. But he doesn't hit anything with huge power, but that's why he can go at the same pace for the entire fight, because he's hitting jabs and teep kicks, and the jab will do a lot of damage, but it's not got the concussive power, generally speaking, to cause any problems. And that's why in the first fight, Dricus got the nod. Because the last fight, Strickland used the jab really, really effectively and caused a lot of damage, but it wasn't eye-catching. And Dricus landed the big eye-catching shots, and that was the difference in that fight. For me, I don't see this going hugely differently to the first fight. It'll be entertaining, but I think there's a rule that Chael Sonnen goes by, which means it's a terrible rule because it's never going to come off. Anyway, he always says in a rematch, if the younger guy won the first fight, in the rematch, the younger guy will win again, but quicker. Dricus is younger, so for me, I'm taking Dricus. By knockout, I think he'll catch one of those big shots. He'll hit it with power. And yeah, so the knockout for me. So if you're going with my picks for the whole card, that is 4,227 to 1, which is awful. And then the whole card plus the method that I've picked. Put down 5 pence and you'll get 100k if it comes off, which it won't, because they are both terrible bets. But as always, until next time, like, subscribe, keep the odds long, and the bet's terrible.